Hello everyone, and thanks for joining this session. My name is Kelly So and I'm a Senior Customer Solutions Manager in AWS Malaysia. I have Tawai here with me, who's going to be my co-host for today. Tawai is a Principal Solutions Architect in AWS Malaysia. We are very delighted to have Lisa Chan from Petronas with us, where we will discuss and learn more about Petronas' journey towards becoming a cloud-first company. Welcome, Lisa, and thanks for joining our fireside chat.
Hi guys, thanks for having me here today.
For those who don't know who Petronas is, could you give us a brief introduction of the company and also a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. For those of you who don't know, Petronas is Malaysia's national oil company. It's a fully integrated oil company. Even though we're national, we're actually present internationally in about 50 countries. And even though we're predominantly oil and gas, we're making a lot of headway into new energy, especially renewables. And a little bit about myself, I'm in Group Digital. I lead the software engineering department, which includes DevOps and testing, which means that we build bespoke applications for the Petronas group of companies, which includes everything that is office productivity related, all the way to the kind of applications that people use at the plant, for permit-to-work systems, safety, access control, and so on.
Thanks, Lisa, for the overview of Petronas and a very interesting introduction of yourself. Let's get going by starting to set a little bit of context. Petronas has started their digital journey with AWS as early as 2016, and this is apparent across all different lines of businesses. At Downstream, there are initiatives around global ERP implementation, plant operations excellence, where we will increase the utilization and efficiency of the plant, as well as supply chain operations. Moving on to retail business, Petronas has been pushing hard to elevate the customer experience through initiatives like B2C FinTech mobile services, next generation point of sales, and mobile fueling. And moving on to the group level, Petronas has embarked on multi-cloud data lake, as well as enterprise IoT platform to streamline all the unconnected and connected devices, which has successfully enabled 2 digital twin pilots for both upstream and gas businesses. Employees upskilling and reskilling are also the core focus of Petronas, where they have rolled out a gamified enablement app for its entire 50,000 workforce. Last but not least, in the gas business, this is my favorite. Petronas has developed a flagship and world-class digital solution for liquefied natural gas, LNG, end-to-end value chain optimization, where additional $100 million in revenue uplift has been realized to date and counting. This is a whole lot going on, Lisa. So let's start with the first question. In order to scale existing digital initiatives that I was going through just now, as well as enabling new innovative ones, we understand that Petronas is going through an aggressive cloud transformation right now. What is Petronas' digital aspiration and role for cloud?
Well, we've been on the cloud journey for some time now, but we were mostly using it in a very transactional way prior to 2019. 2019 was when we did the 20 and 50 program with AWS, which basically means we take 20 applications and we migrate it to the cloud in 50 days. So I think the purpose of that time box was to make sure that we could do migration in an accelerated fashion. So it wasn't something that was new to us, but I think the pace at which we had to do it was new. So we identified a lot of roadblocks. There were a lot of red tape that we never knew that we had. And I think coming out of that engagement, we built some good migration muscle and confidence among the team. And we also managed to identify a few things that we could automate. So I think all in all, right, we exited the exercise being more confident about the fact that we could actually do this migration, right? So now fast forward all the way to the present, we are in the middle of our migration program right now. As of December last year, which is a big milestone for us, we hit about 62% of all our workloads in the cloud, which is the first time that Petronas has had more workloads in the cloud than we do on-premise. Right now, I think we are at maybe 65, 68, and at the end of the year, we aim to be almost 90% in the cloud, which basically means that we are operating more or less fully in the cloud.
So Lisa, on migration specifically, when Petronas started the migration journey, right? How big was the migration landscape, and how does Petronas actually break it down into scopes?
It's quite a big shop. We have about 900 applications and about 3,000 servers. Okay, now we did a number of discovery exercises, and this was actually quite a long journey. We did discovery exercises in 2019, we did discovery exercises in 2020, and we did the discovery exercise again early in this year because the landscape keeps changing, right? You keep adding new applications, you keep decommissioning ones, so the discovery exercise has to be fresh. So I think the way that we broke down the applications, even now and in the early days, was that we started with the principle that we wanted to be as modern as possible in our approach to move to the cloud, right? We wanted our workloads to be optimized for the cloud. We didn't want them to generate more cost than was necessary. We wanted them to be nimble. We wanted them to be fast for our consumers. So we got rid, first of all, of our legacy workload. We identified about 12% of applications that we just sunset decommissioning, and a lot of that is in progress right now. And then about, I think, 50% at least, we are re-platforming and also refactoring. And I think what most people don't understand, and I didn't understand it until I started to do it, is that for the 7R migration strategies, right, it exists on a spectrum and not one or the other. So at the very least, even when we are doing just a little bit to shift something to the cloud, we will at least use as many managed services as possible, okay? So even if the application goes to VM, to IaaS, we'll still upgrade the application's DB so that it's a managed database, for example. And on the other side of the spectrum, we will upgrade the code base to the latest supported version. We will use more PaaS services. We will hook up the insights like CloudWatch and ELK. So all the applications that we migrated exist on this spectrum of modernization, I would say, and we try to do as much as possible.
Let's talk more about Accelerator. You mentioned just now, Lisa, about 20 in 50 and how that has helped accelerated the earlier journey of cloud transformation in Petronas. Let's talk more about AWS Migration Acceleration Program, short for MAP. MAP is a comprehensive cloud migration program designed to assist customers like Petronas to go through the entire cloud migration journey for 3 phases, namely assess, mobilize, migrate, and modernize. And it actually consists of a proven methodology, mechanism, framework, training, and most importantly, investment to help kickstart your migration journey in Petronas. Can you share how did AWS MAP help Petronas with the overall cloud agenda?
Well, the MAP program was important to us because it helped us fill in that gap between when we did the pilot, the 20 and 50 pilot, and also when we actually started the migration program proper. There was a long gap, and many people will know, people who've been on cloud migration programs know that it is not just a commercial one, but it's also a people one, and there's lots of stakeholders to manage. So we needed some early success, like the 20 and 50 program, to demonstrate that we understood the landscape, we knew more or less how we were going to migrate, the strategy that we were going to undertake, and most importantly, how much it was going to cost, how much money the company was going to save in the long run. So this took months. This took months to get the business case together, align all stakeholders internally. So in the meantime, we didn't want to lose the momentum that we had gotten from the 20 and 50 program. People were excited already, achieving that small success, migrating to the cloud. So we wanted to continue, but we couldn't continue without a few things. I think capabilities, technical expertise, and also capacity. Everyone has a day job in group digital. So it was difficult. And AWS came along with the MAP program, which, as you know, it includes hooking us up with your industry partners who are good at migration, that helped us, and most importantly, like you said, investment. So, if we're using your platforms, we might as well make this migration as cost-free as possible. So I think that, yes, that's my favorite part about the MAP program, the investment.
Well, Lisa, you already shared a few of challenges that were faced during the migration, right? But may I ask, are there any key challenges or roadblocks, right, during the migration that probably nearly derail the program or the migration journey, right?
Well, we're quite laser focused in terms of moving to the cloud. So I don't think we came close to derailing the entire program because we stick to strategies that we have committed to. We had challenges, and surprisingly, they weren't technical challenges, or maybe unsurprisingly. Everybody that I've spoken to that's gone through a cloud migration program seems to say that, actually your challenges are convincing stakeholders, or talking about the commercial implications of this, or even managing the capabilities that you will have to build to manage so many production workloads in the cloud. It's a very different ballgame altogether for digital or for IT staff. So I could say that our challenges fall into these broad categories. Firstly, in terms of capability, right? We needed to reskill our whole workforce who were used to building and maintaining and supporting applications on-premise. And secondly, managing stakeholders. So you get a lot of questions, about cloud. Is it secure? Is someone else's data center? Are they going to be able to steal our data? Things like this. Are they still going to host, in country, or where will they host? What country will we even know? So that demarcation of responsibilities, that visibility, some people feel uncomfortable. And lastly, cost. People are very sensitive about costs, about moving to the cloud. Are we locking ourselves in with one cloud provider for the rest of our lives? What do we need to move out? What if it's more expensive than we anticipate that it is? What are we doing to mitigate that risk? Are you sure about this business case? So all of this we have to land at some level of certainty. And then we have to persuade other stakeholders that, to agree with us on this level of certainty. So I think those were our main challenges.
Let's talk a little bit more about the capability challenge that you mentioned just now, right? And with the digital and cloud transformation happening all across organizations, including Petronas, it is inevitable that we need to look into upskilling and reskilling our own people. How is Petronas addressing the new breed of talents required for your transformation journey?
I have to give it to everybody who's impacted at Group Digital. We've had such a lot of interest in the cloud mastery programs that we've rolled out. I think we're addressing this on two fronts mainly. First is that we provide a structured program for every level of cloud mastery. So we have the usual foundation stuff, then we have the advanced stuff that branches out into different kinds of roles. So at the very foundation level, you've got certification, right? And Petronas has been really good about this. We pay for everyone's certification and their training if they're up for it. We don't force, but we say that this is necessary to progress your career. It's an industry recognized certification, so it makes you more valuable, not just in Petronas, but to the market, right? So there's a lot of encouragement going on for people to take time to actually do this. And we dedicate also 2 hours every Friday for people to learn whatever they want. Doesn't even have to be cloud. So we call it Learning Friday. So Friday afternoon, we've got 2 hours. Everybody has free time to learn new skills. And the Cloud Mastery provides that structure for you to learn your way through cloud. Whether you're a solution architect, a data engineer, DevOps engineer, or whatever your role may be, there is a course and there's a certification for you to plow your way through it anyway. Secondly, we do a lot of marketing, because we want to keep the excitement about cloud high. It's very exciting to a lot of people. A lot of people see it as having a foot in the future. They see it as something modern. So I think it's been easy for us to market cloud, to the masses, and people have generally been very enthusiastic and encouraging and been adopting. I think to date, right, we've actually got about 1,000 people who have attended cloud-related training.
So Lisa, since the transformation started since 2019, right? What would be some of the values and benefits that the organization have realized to date?
Well, I think there's different kinds of value, right? There's monetary and then there's non-monetary value. So let me talk about the non-monetary value first. So non-monetary, I guess, like I just said, right, we are preparing our people to be future ready. So our people are our greatest asset here. So I think reskilling and making their skills industry relevant, helping them to get hands-on experience in managing and building for the cloud, I think is good for them, it's good for us, it's good for the business, it's good for everyone. So I think there's value that's inherent to that it's difficult to quantify. Monetary-wise, there's been a lot of cost avoidance. So because we're in the middle of our migration journey right now, the way we modeled the business case is that we see a peak in the investment because you're paying for a few things. You're paying for the migration, you're paying to keep your data center open, you're paying for the workloads in the cloud. So you incur some kind of parallel run. And then once you reach the end of the migration, which we hope to do at the end of this year, Next year, we will start removing some of that operational cost, like our data centers, for example. If we're no longer reliant on them. So we'll start to see it come down. But to date, there have not been as significant savings yet. There will be next year though. But this year, I think we have about 10% to 15% savings in terms of cost avoidance. So like your new servers, your tech refresh, we are no longer buying hardware for our data center.
That's a very good insights that you just shared, Lisa, and that actually tee in very well to my next question to you. So we have been reading a lot about Petronas Group moving forward together 50-30-0. And we also understand that IT is a very important engine behind the business goal. Can you share a little bit how IT transformation and migration aligns to Petronas MFT 50-30-0?
Well, MFT is like our company's rally cry, moving forward together of how we're going to position ourselves in the future. So the 50% refers to the immediate goal, which is to improve cash generation by 50%. And the middle portion, which is the medium-term goal, which is not so medium anymore because it's coming up in 8 years, is that 30% of our business must be new business, like new energy, solar, hydrogen, or new products. And lastly, the most aggressive one of all is that by 2050, we, as now an oil and gas company, want to be net zero carbon, right, by then, which is a big deal, I think. So my perspective on how Group Digital contributes to this agenda is a few things. Firstly, I think we need to be conscious about the operational cost that we create. Okay, so cloud is one of the ways that we are avoiding that. Okay, so the whole brick and mortar business that we used to run in the data centers, right, this generated a lot of cost, and it would have continued to have done so if we had stuck with that. So that's one. I think secondly, a lot of the new business, like new energy, for example, right, they have very different digital demands. Okay, so we anticipate that there are going to be interesting new applications around like carbon emissions tracking, analysis. So, and even maybe allowing consumers applications to help them choose clean energy. Okay, so things like this, they go along, I think, with the green agenda. And lastly, and this is where we need to collaborate with you guys as well, because I'm sure you have a net zero carbon target as well. Okay, so when we move our workloads to cloud, we are expecting our partners and our ecosystem vendors, everybody to come with us on this green and sustainability journey as well. So this is something that we hope to keep an eye on, and not that we are shifting the problem to you, but our stakeholders and our financiers, they put pressure on us to become more green, more sustainable. So it's good business, not just good for the environment, but it's good for Petronas. And then we, in turn, also need to work with our partners like you to make sure that, whatever workloads that it is, we host in the cloud, they're hosted in a green and sustainable and responsible way.
Thanks, Lisa, for the insight. This is probably going to be my last question, right? As you may know, many enterprises are embarking on a journey to move to the cloud, right? And obviously, Petronas is actually ahead of the curve, right? For those customers or enterprises who are actually moving to the cloud, do you have any advices to them as they embark on the journey?
I think the first thing would be the leadership buy-in. The journey to the cloud is a big investment initially, which means that you have to be able to persuade people to see an accurate vision of the future that comes several years down the line, okay? So that story, that narrative, everybody's got to sing the same song, because when you're migrating applications, then the message has to be cascaded to the next level and the level after that and the level after that, so that the engineers and the business are together in this transformation. So you avoid questions, in the business asking like, I don't want to pay for cloud, because it's expensive now, but I'm only going to get savings maybe like 1 year down the line, so why should I do this now? So to prevent, I think, this kind of pushback, leadership engagement is key, and the cloud agenda was a very top level agenda for us. It was approved at our highest level of leadership. The second thing is, I think it's more of being prepared for the mental shock of what you have on premise. You find all sorts of applications, no owners, no documentation, who is using this. So be prepared. I think most enterprises do struggle with this. Because it's a sunk cost, you kind of lose track of what you have on premise. You need to do scanning and discovery to gain visibility on what you really have and what you really don't need. Make hard decisions on what not to bring with you in cloud. I feel that is a more important decision, not what you bring with you, but what you don't bring with you as well. Thirdly, I think focusing on foundations, I feel is something that we should have spent more time on. We spent time on it, but it was a little bit rushed because it was already part of our migration program. So we were already on a committed time schedule, right, to migrate 30% in the first year, 60% in the second year, 90% in the last year. But in the first year, at least in the beginning part of that journey, you got to spend a lot of time on optimizing the way that you accelerate, okay? Maybe changing cybersecurity policies. We actually automated one of our vulnerability scans, which used to be operated by a person. So someone had to go in, do the test, download the report, send to you. Okay, so we've incorporated that into our pipelines now, and it can be triggered by the application team. So small things like that, right? They add up. It adds like 3 days onto every migration, and then like you have 900 applications to migrate. So how much does that add up to, right? And the landing zone, we also worked with AWS to do a lot of landing zone improvements, which means that everything that lands in a way that is sustainable, modernized, and fit for purpose for being in the cloud. So automation through terraforming, the security policies that are applied prior. So all of these things we baked into the landing zone design and we deployed it. So I think I would encourage enterprises to spend a lot of time. I'm not talking weeks, but months thinking about your best design, upskilling your people, and then deploying that before you even start your migration.
Thank you, Lisa. As you have heard from Lisa, many enterprise customers who are adopting cloud today, right, recognize that they need to implement change. However, they face challenges such as cost overrun, security events, lack of digital skill set, and competition from digital native businesses. All these challenges combine to prevent enterprises from realizing the full benefit of transformation using cloud. Many customers realize that they are not able to realize the full potential of a transformation because of one misconception, right? Digital transformation is not about a technology problem. In contrary, research and experience says that enterprises must focus on people and culture in order to be able to compete in the new digital economy. Enterprises with leadership that align organization to a shared vision, focus on people and culture, implement new operating system, and become data-driven are far more likely to succeed in their reinvention effort. AWS work backward from customer-chosen outcome to provide guidance, solution, program, and services that enable enterprises to successfully reinvent. Thanks again, Lisa, for joining us in this session. I hope that those that have joined us in this session find it useful and insightful. Please help us to improve by attending to our survey. Thank you again, and happy cloud computing.